Hello and welcome back to another episode. In this week's video, I'm going to be telling you how I got my HGV license completely free.
So it all started when I came back from my travels and I said to my sister I want to become a HGV driver. That's when she told me there's a HGV driver shortage in the UK and the government will pay for your license. So that's when I thought I'd Google it and find out for myself. And as you can see, the UK is facing a significant shortage of heavy goods vehicle drivers. And it says it's mostly because experienced drivers are all approaching retirement age. So I'm now going to talk you through the process and how you can do exactly the same. So what you need to do is search National Logistics Academy into Google. Once you've found it, click on HGV Skills Bootcamp. Scroll down and you'll see an option that says I am looking to learn. Click on that option. Scroll down again and you'll see register your interest. This will then take you to an application form that you have to fill out to register your interest. The application form is pretty simple, so it's just like your first name, your last name, mobile number, email address, and all of that. So fill this application form out. To be able to get processed to the next stage, you have to have a conditional job offer. So obviously most people won't have a conditional job offer, but you can get one of these by applying for jobs online, and then most companies will get back to you and say, come back to us when you have your license, which is what happened with me. So I applied for a job. They said, come back when you've got your license. And then that was enough for them to give me the funding to get my license. So the application form is pretty straightforward. It will just ask you simple questions, and it will also ask you questions like what experience you have and why you want your HGV license. So once you've completed the application form, you will then hopefully get an email back saying, thank you for your patience. Some spaces have become available and we're pleased to invite you to the next stage. So the next stage after this, you'll see, is you will need to complete an English initial assessment. So took about 20 minutes and it's pretty straightforward. It's basically, they just want to know that you understand English enough to be able to understand the theory questions and the CPC questions. You will then get another email that says, thank you for completing the English assessment and applying for HGV Skills Bootcamp. It will then say, we'd like to invite you to an information session. And then my information session was on Thursday, the 16th of January. So I applied on the 9th of January, and by the 16th, I was then being invited to an information session. So that lasted for 20 minutes. During that session, we were asked to get a D2 and a D4 form. The information session was a Zoom call, and there was probably about 10 other people in there. You can get these from some post offices, but the nearest one from me was about half an hour away. So I ordered them online and they came within a couple of days. So the D2 form is for you to fill out and the D4 form is for your medical examiner to fill out. So after the session, you'll be given a case handler, and that case handler will then book your medical assessment. So my medical assessment was about 2 weeks after the information session. So I had time for the forms to come, managed to fill them out. You go to your medical assessment with your forms and your driving license. The medical assessor then assesses you to make sure that you are fit to be a lorry driver. So they'll check your eyesight, make sure you don't have any underlying health conditions. You will then send the forms off with your license. And then after about 2 weeks, your provisional license will come back to you in the post. You cannot book your theory test until your provisional license has come back through. Once you actually get your physical license, it isn't any different to your standard license. There isn't any more marks on the back. It's exactly the same. So before your license even comes back, you can go onto the DVLA website and do a license check, put your details in, and then you can check what category of vehicle your license will allow you to drive. And you'll also be able to see if the provisional element has gone onto your license. So if you just log onto their website, it will show you, now I've passed my test, I can obviously drive large vehicles. But whilst I was applying for my provisional license, I also applied for a provisional bus license in case I ever want to sit my bus test. So I just ticked all of the boxes on the D2 form where it said which license would you like a provisional for. So obviously I went for C+E and D1, just so I was able in the future to sit my D1 without having to reapply for a provisional license. So while you're waiting for your license to come back, you'll be given access to a website called Driving Test Success Anytime. And this is basically a website that will help you pass your theory test. So on the theory test, there's 3 elements. There's the multiple choice, hazard perception, and the CPC. The CPC section is probably the hardest. This is where you'll be given case studies, and it will ask you questions about lorry driving in general. So it will ask you questions about driver's hours, or it will ask you questions about a load of a vehicle. So this is definitely worth revising for. If you don't revise for this section, you probably will struggle to pass first time. And this is a free 6-month subscription that is paid for by the scheme, so it's definitely worth taking advantage of. So the pass mark for the multiple choice theory test is 85 out of 100. The pass mark for the hazard perception test is 67 out of 100. And the pass mark for the CPC test is 40 out of 50. So you'll then be contacted by a company called Mantra Learning, and Mantra Learning run online courses. You'll have to sit 5 online courses, and each course is 4 hours long. The first course that I had to sit was on the 28th of January, and the dates are very flexible, so they will give you dates that the courses are being run, and you can choose whichever date you're available. So I did have to take a few days off work. So the first class was all about the tachomaster and driver's hours. So the guy running the Zoom call basically explained the tachomaster and helped us understand the driver's hours. The second class was keeping you and your load safe. This was quite a difficult one because the Zoom call was being taken in a classroom, so the guy was trying to show us how to use ratchet straps while sat in a classroom, whilst we were on all at home, obviously looking through our screens. So that was quite difficult to understand, but there was a lot of good information. The third class was then staying in the green and driving economically. So yeah, that was quite a long class, 4 hours, all about driving economically, but it was still interesting nonetheless. And then who's in whose blind spot, so that was basically a 4-hour course, understanding who was in whose blind spot and how to basically understand when a car is in your blind spot. And then the final class was protecting the brand. So I managed to do 20 hours of online learning within 4 weeks. So on the 11th of March, I was ready to sit my theory test. That was the longest hour and a half of my life. I have my results here. I haven't looked at them yet. I'm really nervous. I'm scared. The guy was smiling, which makes me think I don't know. Pass. Yes! I'm one step closer to eating steak and chips. I thought there is no way I'm going through that hell again. So once you've passed your theory test, you will receive 3 certificates. The first one being your multiple choice test, and that will give you your score. Your second one being your hazard perception score, and your third one being your CPC score. So you have to pass all 3 of these elements to pass your theory test. If you fail one of these elements, you have to sit the whole test again. So I passed my theory test on the 11th of March. I then asked for the nearest available dates. So I live in the southwest, so I knew it was going to take a little bit of time, and the nearest available dates were the 22nd of April. Good morning, everybody. So it's the 22nd of April today, and I'm on my way to do the practical element of my driving. So today is Tuesday. I'll be driving today, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Monday and Tuesday. So hopefully I'll pass, but yeah, we'll see. All I know is that I'm starting at 8:30 today. I don't know anything else. They haven't actually told me anything. They were like, can you meet this guy at 8:30 on this farm? So I'm like, yeah, sure. But yeah, considering I applied for this process at the start of January, we're now in April. It's taken a little bit of time. There was a few gaps where I had to wait for things. So I had to wait for my forms to come back before I could go for my medical. I then had to wait for the nearest available theory test date, which took a couple of weeks, and then yeah, I obviously had to then sit before that all of my online classes. So it's quite a long process going from never driving a lorry to having a license in 4 months. I think is quite impressive. And I'm on my way to a place called Clumpton, which is about 20 minutes from where I live, so luckily the test place is pretty local.
And yeah, I'll let you know, I'll keep you posted, let you know how it goes. So I've just finished day 1 of lorry driving. So this course is actually 7 days of driving. So today's Tuesday, I'll be driving until next Tuesday, and then my test is on Wednesday. So yeah, it's pretty intense. I've just found out as well today that the actual driving test and the reversing test are 2 separate tests. So I'll be sitting the reversing test on Friday, and that will be assessed by someone within that training company, and then my actual test will be next Wednesday, where someone from Boza will come out and assess me on that test. So the tests are 2 separate tests, and then there's also the CPC element. After today, I'm feeling pretty confident. I went straight into the lorry at 8:30, and we were straight out onto the road. I was driving straight away, which I was quite surprised about. I thought we would have like done a bit of practice in the yard or something, but we were straight out onto the road. And yeah, my instructor was very patient and explained everything very well. So I'm feeling pretty confident. Hopefully by the end of the week, I'll have enough knowledge and know enough to be able to pass my test. So this is day 3 of lorry driving. I have a CPC test stage, which is like questions and answers. So they'll ask me questions like, how do you know your load is safe? Can you check the lorry? And it'll be like scenarios, so it would be something like, you've parked here and you feel like your lorry's been tampered with, what can you do to make sure it hasn't, and things like that. So that is going to be today. We're going to run over it this morning, and then hopefully I'll pass that. And then tomorrow is my reversing test. So we practiced a little bit reversing yesterday. Yeah, obviously it is quite difficult because you have to turn the wheel the other way, but the opposite way to which way you want the lorry to go. But I'm feeling pretty confident. In that test, you have to basically reverse around a cone and into a loading bay. So just in front of me here is what they call the pad, and it's got markers on it, and what they do is they put cones out and they make you do reverse maneuvers on this pad area, and they make you reverse into a bay.
So here's an example of the reverse test. You'd start in the start position, you'd drive forward up to the 2 cones, but not past the 2 cones. You'd then reverse around the B cone and into the loading bay. You must get your trailer into the marked hatchings of the loading bay.
So today is my last day of driving. It is Tuesday, so my test is tomorrow. So I've done 6 days of driving, and my test will be on the 7th day. I'm feeling pretty confident, to be honest. I think I've just done a mock test and got 4 minors. I would say it's like driving a car when you're driving forward. You just have to consider you've got a huge trailer on the back. And yeah, the reversing test is done and the CPC test is done. So the reversing test did involve coupling and uncoupling. So yeah, there was a lot to remember, but so far it's been pretty straightforward. So after completing my CPC test last week, which was all just questions about lorry driving, I then had my reversing test, and I've just passed my practical test. So the test lasted for an hour and a half. It started with some questions. They were like, show me, tell me questions. They're like, show me how you put the lights on. Tell me how you do this, those kind of questions. They were all really easy and straightforward. You'll do them in your CPC. And then I went out onto the road, passed my test. We drove from Taunton to a place called Wellington, and then back up to Taunton, and I got no minors. I couldn't believe when we got back, and it was like, yeah, you've passed, no minors. I mean, I thought I made quite a few mistakes, but clearly not. So I've now got a nice 40-minute drive home. I can relax. I've got huge sweat patches. I was so nervous. I'm just so glad it's done. So glad it's done. It's currently like 22 degrees, so I'm going to go to the beach for the rest of the day and relax. So I passed my driving test on the Wednesday, and by the following Tuesday, my driving license had come back. With my driving license, I also got a driver qualification card and a driver card. So the driver card is basically the card that goes into the tachograph, and this is the card you have to take with you every time you want to drive a lorry. Your driver qualification card will last for 5 years. Every 5 years, you have to do 35 hours of CPC training to be able to continue to drive a HGV. If you're thinking about doing your HGV license, I'd say just go ahead and do it, because it seems daunting at first, but once you actually start driving, it's just like driving a car. You just have to compensate for a huge trailer on the back, and if you enjoy driving, you'll definitely enjoy the course. I start my new job in just under 2 weeks. I just want to say a massive thank you for Yeovil Driver Training for getting me through my test. I also want to say thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and if you've got any questions, ask away in the comments below.